We have to leave uranium in the ground. We have to stop this political tool of digging up uranium on Aboriginal land when people are strongly saying no. Out of the meeting of the 14 Aboriginal nations that are represented here today, we've also got non-Aboriginal people. This organisation is not colour-based, it's not gender-based, it's based on the future for our unborn grandchildren. Out of the meeting, we've had a resolution that we're going to attack Adam Giles, Nigel Scullion, Bess Price for the dodgy tactics that they're using, as well as the federal government in their onslaught that they've had in the Northern Territory. And at the moment, we've beaten the government in WA, in South Australia, and in 4 sites in the Northern Territory. So this little band of warriors has beaten the Commonwealth government as well as the state government and territory governments. So a round of applause for yourselves, because you've done that. And they didn't do it with selfish intentions. They didn't do it just for themselves. They did it for the future. They did it because of the dodgy political stuff that's happening in Canberra, selling to India. And India was represented at the meeting as well. So in solidarity around the world and with the Aboriginal nations and the non-Aboriginal people of Australia, we've stopped a waste facility in this country because of the non-science, because of the dodgy practices the politicians are using. And we're saying no. Not now, not ever will the waste dump come to the Northern Territory. The waste has to go to Lucas Heights, and it has to stay at Lucas Heights, where they have the storage facilities, they have the scientific people there to look after it, and the idea of opening up a remote dump a long way away from the east coast is not science, it's not world's best practice, and we're going to hold the government to world's best practice, because that's what they sprout off to us when they come out to country and talk to us and try and bribe us with houses and roads and infrastructure to have a nuclear waste dump. Well, we'd like to see that same bribery happen in New South Wales, in Victoria, in Queensland, to white people who live in the city, because it ain't coming to our country. We're going to block it at the borders. We're going to block it on every highway it's going to be transported on. We're going to block it at every wharf. So not only is there Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, we've got churches, we've got unions, we've got a whole lot of organisations that are standing up with us to say this is wrong and it will not happen.
At the meeting, the Australian Nuclear Free Alliance resolved to support Mirarr traditional owners in their fight to contest this highly contaminating industry operating within their lands and within Kakadu National Park. This is a mine that in December last year experienced one of Australia's worst industrial accidents, the failure of a leach tank which released over 1.3 million litres of radioactive slurry. That mine has never been charged with a single fine over that incident. They've never been given a single reason for deterrence through the regulatory bodies. This is a mine whose radioactive fallout from its product is hovering over Japan right now and contaminating communities and dispossessing people from their land. This is a mine that has never been charged over those instances, never conducted a review into its safety regime. This is a disgraceful mine, a terrible operator, and one that needs to be held to account.
I'm from Ceduna in South Australia. Now we are going to fight the nuclear freeway from Western Australia to Port Adelaide. So a warning to you uranium companies, get it right. Manda Yamuru Iliga, which means leave it in the ground.
We just want to send a very clear message to the government. We will block this at every port, along every highway. I'm from Larrakia country, Darwin. So we've got the north covered, we've got the east covered, we've got the west covered, we've got the south covered. So good luck, Mr. McFarlane, bringing that stuff through here.
And in the WA, up in the Pilbara, we do, we go out there and talk to the TOs, and you know, there's one voice, nobody wants it in the ground. It's time for action now, and we're prepared to do blockades to stand up and be counted, and everybody matters. Thank you.
In this land we call Mbantua, we have had responsibility handed down from generation to generation. And it's very difficult having a town built on your homelands. We have to look at everybody else's needs, and ours is always at the bottom of the list. It is very hard when we are just custodians struggling to keep our sites in place so that the next generation and the generation after could have what we have now. But unfortunately, with this town growing and pressure put on us every day of our lives, the only relief we look forward to is when we end up in country ourselves at the end of our journey. So I know it's difficult to talk about the struggles that we have, but we continue on. There's only a few of us left now, but we have a lot of support from extended family that do try. But then, unfortunately, policies come into it. Before you know, you're struggling. You're on struggle street for the rest of your life, trying to protect what has been handed down. We don't get it by a show of hands. We have it there all the time. We grew up here noticing our sites dwindling every time someone wants to develop something. And that's a part of us that we lose. So it's very hard. Don't ever put your hand up to be a custodian in Alice Springs, because it's a very hard, lonely journey you walk. I think.
And the Arrernte back in 2005 started a campaign to stop government's proposals to build a nuclear waste repository here on Arrernte land. There was 2 proposed sites, one at Mount Everard, 16 mile, and one over in the east side, which was at Harts Range, close to Ngwala. All our families, Arrernte families, we got extended family groups, and when back in the time when the government's proposals came out, there was no proper consultation conducted with our people. And the only consultation they ever had was a forum that they held at the convention centre, where everybody else was invited to come. And the elders had a joint meeting held at Mount Everard, and their decision was no. And as far as Arrernte people are concerned, the decision remains no.
In June of this year, after 7 years of struggle, people 500 k's up the track stopped the federal government from imposing a radioactive waste dump on their country. The community at Muckaty and the traditional owners who said no to the imposition of that radioactive waste dump on their country, to the division that that project brought, and who stood strong and gathered supporters around Australia and who took to the streets, to the boardrooms and to the federal court and stopped that plan, were greatly welcomed, and that victory was greatly acknowledged at the Anfa meeting. Anfa provided a lot of support to that community and will provide support to any community facing this threat anywhere in Australia. Because what we need to do is we need now to move beyond Muckaty. That was the clear message of the weekend. For 20 years plus, different federal governments have pursued the same flawed strategy of trying to find a remote place to dump Australia's radioactive waste. It is a policy that has no basis in science. It is a policy that is not ethical or effective, and it is not responsible. And instead of continuing the same flawed process of divide and rule, blankets and beads, for the storage and disposal of some of the nation's worst industrial waste on the lands of some of the nation's poorest people, it's now time that we took a national, responsible, mature approach and had an inquiry, a commission, a full investigation into the wide range of options available to best manage radioactive waste. And we stop looking for a vulnerable postcode and we start having a responsible and comprehensive process. The Australian Nuclear Free Alliance has supported that and is driving a call for that. And I'm pleased to say that that call is gathering support from around Australia and from many groups. I'm very pleased to be able to say this morning 2 million Australian workers formally joined in that support in calling for an independent commission into responsible radioactive waste management options in Australia, and I thank the Australian Council of Trade Unions for joining with church groups, Indigenous groups, environment groups, public health groups in this call, and we have a very simple call to Minister Ian Macfarlane. Move beyond Muckaty, stop trying to impose radioactive waste by playing a carrot and stick game with a long-term environmental and human health threat. Let's have a fair income, genuine approach that looks at the full ways that we can manage responsibly and effectively our national radioactive waste. We will stand as individuals, as representatives of Aboriginal nations, environment organisations, trade unions and other groups. We will stand individually and collectively in support of a responsible solution to this problem, and we are prepared to work constructively for a responsible solution, and we are prepared to continue to oppose effectively any irresponsible push.
The Barking Mob, Nimba, and the Wiradjuri people come and sit and look, bring this to attention. We can't close our eyes on this, we can't stay asleep on it. The water is part of the landscape itself. We've been through the cotton industry so far. They engineered our landscape. We got to stop this process, and we will, because we're warriors.
And this group of people here, we've stopped the dump down in South Australia. We've managed to stop the dump up here in Muckaty with the support of a whole heap of people and the support of Anfa. But this is going to be an ongoing saga, look. And all of us here stand in solidarity, and so should use good, smart people. And we want to stop this industry from the mine site to the port and from the reactor to the waste.
And we are concerned about uranium and what happens to it and all that. And we're really concerned about the government tricking and hassling people, dangling money, tricking people, making fights amongst families, and also destroying sacred sites. So our gang, the mining companies and the government, we're not going to stay. If we have to bring this country to a standstill, so be it. And we will follow the uranium mines to the ends of the earth until we shut them down. And this way we will save ourselves and the future and the past. All those war games that's happening around the world with uranium from all our countries, that's got to stop. It's time for the world to come and sit down and make peace with everybody. So you make peace with us, and you make peace with our country, and then we can live happily ever after.
My name is Warren H. Williams. I'm an Arrernte man, and also I'm a Waramungu man too. So it's all good and well for the government to say that they're going to dump nuclear waste in our country. But guess what? We're the ones who are going to be living here after the government is gone. Most of the people that work in the government are not from here. We are going to be here, our kids are going to be here, our grandkids, and our future generation. We're all going to live on poisoned land if they put poison in our country. So we're going to be the ones who suffer, not the people in government. So we're not going to be Meriam, it's like government not going to get it. Ila jagat na ngama urchur mal no kurundur elam pal na urchur mal elam men ara man na jakul pad rang rang dikin ikindran pad dira nagan ila jaga rangara ichu naga wonir jag ila nimba kurun ma bad na urchur men na awa that's all I want to say.
I got a message for my people. I'm Yankunytjatjara. Kanga ilala jangani anang yuda ngana wanti ni irati nyarapalo nyawanti mandanga mono chora kanyin manyaraballa pampun jawia banyi uranium nyangaja banyak ngura kural pai kapi gulu kurani mono anang elunda nani kangana na wian manani ngana mukoringa ngana ngura adun man ko jago mono ngana bacici gulu rawanyi nan jago mandanga ngana na anang pitanjara Yankunytjatjara lala jiwangkani.
There is a problem in Kintai. The Madu people over there, they trying to put an appeal in as well. and we find it hard down there because we are getting knocked back all the time. So I wanted to say that we need to support over in Western Australia for the Madu people who's finding it hard down there, and I want the minister to come down and visit those areas, which I have a call on the appeal. And I wanted to say in my language as well too that it's very important. Ngora lambat nyara jam pulka nyangala, pale jan lajo mengayo lokoli wangkara lajo ngora nyara nyam adun mereka nyel jago, pale nyangala lajo ngora pale nyangka bini kanya jiji wadi na bemin mata doka ngora lajo pale ngo kanyel kijam na kora kari dem wane nyangka ngora pale nyangka yana ngo ngala jena anja tamo bidi kapale bidi ngora walgo mununga ngora balyangka ka nganya uranium karere waja ni pale jeno ton golea ngora balya mono ya ngora la walgo mono kanyil ki jalo nganya wangara ka koari nganya nyakola jalo koari nganya la jo sapor manama kala yana ngo bini jado wangara jago bale nyako yowa
4 or 5 going for waste dump at Warlpiri land. There's more of us. We are saying no for the waste dump at Warlpiri land. Lawa, Karamiga, Kujajuku, Ngutu, Kuruguruk, for the sake of our kids. We don't want waste dump in Warlpiri land. Thank you.
Don't waste the territory. This land means a lot to me. Been living here for centuries. This place we call Makati. Don't waste the territory. This land means a lot to me. Been living here for centuries. This place we call Makati.
We don't want nothing to come to LA. Start listening. We don't want nothing to come to LA. Start listening. We don't want nothing to come to LA. Start listening. We want you people to support us.
I used to chill back at my hometown. Now I'm bound to lead on my young crew. Selling your land isn't tight. Let's get together and fight for our rights. Planting your poison in our land just to get some cash in your hand. You're drilling a hole right through my soul, right through my soul, right through my soul. Don't waste the territory. This land means a lot to me. Been living here for centuries. This place we call Makati.
per usual.
Read out what we put there.
Yeah, you want to read that?
Rights victory. Many people from Tennant Creek expressed thanks to NFA for the strong and support and solidarity over the years.
Yeah.
And now we come at the Warlpiri land. Yeah. A strong message from the Warlpiri person.
You're right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would be too if you were coming at me. I'd be running. But anyhow, it's a serious business. We're not here for a tea party. We're talking about uranium. And as I said before, this substance, uranium, and the waste dump and that is not a fruit salad. I would be too if you were coming at me. I'd be running. But anyhow, it's a serious business. We're not here for a tea party. We're talking about uranium. And as I said before, this substance, uranium, and the waste dump and that is not a fruit salad. Uranium's not a fruit salad. It's not a dairy nut milk, chocolate, or mother's milk. It's the opposite, it kills. And if we don't stop it now, a lot of people are going to get sick and a lot of people will be killed. And we can also save the world with all the wars that's going on. And we'll get more. There's only a few of us here. A lot of people couldn't be up here with us today for different reasons, but if we have to call in the troops, it shall be done. So these governments have to stop tricking people, and they owe us, we don't owe them. So don't get sucked in by the dollars to sell your land and sell your soul. And don't let your kids go in and work in those terrible mines, because those poor little buggers will be lost and gone down the track. Cancer kills everybody. So don't muck around with it. And we're the opposite people. We love the earth. And these people seem to destroy the earth. War criminals should be locked up. There should be crimes against people destroying the earth. Destroying sacred sites, pressuring people, making people fight, they should be war crimes. We have to treat them as war crimes. They should be treated that way and stop the killing and the murdering. They are the murderers, we're the peace.
Their office and said, we're going to fight you to stop the nuclear waste dump. They wanted it built by the end of 2011. And here we are, 2014, at the Anfa meeting, and there is no nuclear waste dump built. There is no nuclear waste dump site proposed that has been declared. So the Chief Minister thinks he has the power to run around the Northern Territory and throw breadcrumbs to people and try and convince them to have a nuclear waste dump in exchange for those crumbs. Maybe on the chance they'll get some money for their outstation. Maybe they'll get another kilometre of bitumen road. That's absolutely disgraceful that that's the most creative thing that a Chief Minister can come up with to get funding and services to remote communities that he's responsible for looking after, that he's been neglecting the whole time he's been in power, that he's been ignoring. So we call on Adam Giles here to think a little bit harder about how he's going to get funding to the communities that he promised funding to before the last Northern Territory election. The Liberals were elected promising funding to the bush, promising outstations, housing, roads, community council control back, and none of that has happened. Shame, Adam Giles. Shame.